Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Well, we seem to have a full house today. Professor Anthony Kila is here, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies. Professor David Awurawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, Nigeria. Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, as well as Jide Ologun, a legal practitioner and national development advocate. Well, thank you all for showing up. This looks like the last, Sunday, of the year. So thank you all for showing up. Very quickly, we've had 3 guests here looking at quite a number of issues. Mr. Dan Kunle, doing a review of the year, looking backwards and looking forward to 2025, reviewing 2024 and setting policy priorities for 2025. We have Alex Nwuba commenting on the NCAA, Civil Aviation Authority, taking the decision to sanction airlines that have been treating their customers poorly. And then at the end of the day, we had Professor Kemi Rotimi, Professor of History at the Obafemi Awolowo University, looking at the issue of state police, which was also a very major issue in the year 2024. I'd like to start with you, Professor Anthony Kila.
Well, the 3 major issues that you mentioned, let me go from the last to the first. State policing, my view, which I've made known in several fora, is that I think state policing is a good idea, and I think it is good that people who are against it bring forward their concerns. I notice that nobody is against it in essence or in principle. They tend to be against it because they think it might be abused or we might not be able to fund it. So my recommendations for those who are for it and who are going to conceive and implement it is to take cognizance of these concerns and make sure that the state police authority are well funded and that they're not abused, for example. And regarding the matter of the aviation, which I'm very passionate about, I think we must be very clear that the regulator has a principal role to play, contrary to what Dr. Nwamba was saying. There is a very clear path the regulators have to pay there. The NCA, as the Consumer Protection Unit, now Directorate, it used to be unit, is now Directorate. The Airports Authority have a public policy and Consumer Protection Unit. And I dare say that the role of the regulator in reality, more than anything, is to protect consumers, to make sure that their flights are safe, that they are well treated. Then in terms of policy, for aviation policy, to make sure that there are more flights. It is also true that the market can regulate providers' behavior. To that extent, perhaps we call on the media to expose and emphasize which airline is doing well and which one is doing badly in terms of feedback and review. So that way the market can adjust themselves to that as well. The NNPC thing, which amongst other things, Dankule mentioned, I believe that the primary role of the NNPC is to provide its products. I also believe that in terms of reform, perhaps it's time for us to separate the regulator from the service provider in that industry, because I think that confusion is creating things. I think NNPC should be too engrossed in trying to make the refinery work to have time to respond into things. I say that, in a cheeky way, because in reality, they cannot ignore perception. But their primary purpose should try to make sure that their products are available and move on.
Mr. Jide Ologun.
Thank you very much. Let me pick it from the energy sector. He brilliantly mentioned the need for productivity in Nigeria, and I align with that, which will help us revamp our economy. And to that extent, NNPC and the power providers must be upscaled in supporting the economy of the nation. He also mentioned the issue of gas provision for energy. Let the ecosystem be reorganized in a way that the focus is on effectiveness. And of course, he mentioned some of the achievements in the upstream. And again, with the interplay of Dangote coming into business, which has also awakened the revival of the Port Harcourt refineries. You know, we are feeling the effect right now because perhaps for this Yuletide season, the pump price of PMS has dropped, and I hope it's not picked up again after the season of the festivities. So basically, if Nigeria must move in the direction of prosperity and the renewed hope, we must ensure that productivity, production, activities are revived in the country. And talking about the state police, I know the history of police in Nigeria dates back to 1820, and whose interest is being protected is still a major question right now. But if we realize that, as stated in Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that the primary purpose of government shall be the security and the welfare of the citizens, then we do all we can to ensure security, and which by extension we guarantee good welfare to citizens. And I appreciate his alluding to what Lagos State has achieved and trying to come up with templates that appear like state policing. So it's not rocket science, and if we bring integrity into it, basically, it will really be of help. And, talking about the tax reform issue that came up, I also appreciate the fact that he mentioned some states like Niger State, Lagos State, and Borno State that are making the best of the agro-economy investments. And I believe that the days of governance idleness should be over in the country, where governors, according to him, will be running to Abuja for allocations. Be creative, generate revenues within your state, and be able to engage the economy effectively to attract foreign direct investments, even if it's foreign direct within the nation, those who want to get attracted to the economy magnet you have established. And I believe that if all these are pulled together, the hope that the president is promising, because the president also is insisting that he is going ahead with his policies and to ensure that we have a restructured economy for a better encounter for the citizens. And I pray eventually that all this will translate into benefits for the citizens and not just be theoretical in nature. So far so good and so challenging in 2024. And we have few days to step into 2025. So we want to wish everyone a triumphant entry into 2025.
Professor Awurawo.
Triumphant entry into 2025.
Do there's anything like that?
Well, 2024 in review, the economy. Of course, we can say 2024 has been challenging for everybody. 2025 will also be challenging, but hopefully productivity would improve in 2025, and that will help to, also improve the welfare of the people and the quality of life of Nigerians. Productivity, I think, will improve because the economy will begin to stabilize. Like I've said several times, the policies of the government, when it came in last year, were okay. There was a need to, do something about the fuel subsidy, but I don't think that the approach in, making it happen was right. I think it would have been follow the gradualist approach, so more evolutionary than the revolutionary measure that the president took. Because if that had happened, it would have, enabled Nigerians to, the level of poverty would have reduced, and that would have empowered them to be able to, purchase things. It would also have helped the industries to be able to produce. Those that left might not have left. And of course, that's, in addition to the floating of the naira, I think that one layer of government exchange rate will have been kept to enable companies to be able to import things so that they won't, shut their doors and then go away as they did. The loss of productivity is a major issue why, of course, we are where we are. But having said all of that, 2025, things should begin to stabilize, but people who are perceptive should not hope for some, dramatic change in the way things will pan out. Like I said last week, I said the government already has taken a leap. They could have gone gradually. It would have, removed the dysfunction which has taken place. Make productivity to be there, and then empower Nigerians to be able to, buy things, and that will have created more stability than what we have. But government has taken its measures. 2025 should be a lot better than 2024. I mean, things should begin to improve, gradually. Now, talking about the other layers of government, yes, reference is made to Niger, Lagos, and some other states. I personally think that Lagos should have invested in power more than it has, given the vastness of the economy of Lagos. I think that was one mistake that governors of Lagos have made. All of those times when the national grid was collapsing, Akwa Ibom was not suffering it because they have their own independent power. It was the only state that was lit when everywhere else was dark. And I thought Lagos should have also been somewhere around that place. So I will advise the Lagos State government to invest with rapidity in power, independent power. That would make the economy to expand even further.
Another capital investment in reality.
Yes, which will be welcome. And other states too. I was talking about my state, Delta, the other time. I said, well, with all the humongous amount Delta gets from the 13% derivation, we don't seem to see much. Those states should use the money they are getting from oil to invest in other sectors. I remember that Governor Douala, when he was governor, started a project of Lagos Delta Beyond Oil. And other oil producing states too could copy that. But it didn't quite take shape from there. They should continue from there. Oil, it will be exhausted at some point. What you are getting from oil, invest in some other thing. Niger is taking advantage of its land mass and everything to leverage on agriculture, and they are doing just fine. Osun is also doing good, doing well. Other states should also, so because this thing we are talking about is not only federal government, other layers of government, should also invest as much as they can so that collectively it will increase the prosperity of Nigerians. As for sanctioning of airlines that have not, rendered services as they should, yeah, that's fine. My last time in Abuja, my flight was supposed to be 7 o'clock. We flew eventually at 12:00 something and got to Abuja around 1 a.m. In fact, some people had to call their drivers to pick them to go home because they were not sure if they got to Abuja at 1 a.m. they would be safe. And there was no penalty for anybody. I was lucky. Those that invited me provided a car and policemen to take me to where I would stay. So I had the confidence to go to Abuja. But those who didn't have that luxury, they simply called their drivers and then returned home. And nobody is penalized for that. So what NCAA has done is welcome. It will get the airlines to sit up. But I think that because Professor Clark talked about market forces, the field is not, the competitiveness is not vast. It's narrow. Many times you want to travel at a particular time, only one airline is available. And you are compared to just book that airline and you want to fly. So expanding the space will also be good in ensuring that service is improved. Then for state police, we have always said it over and over again, it's good. I agree with Professor Kemi Rotimi that what was thrown away in 1966 is now what we want so much at this point. But I don't agree with him that we should not bother much about conflict. There will be conflict. And what I will recommend is that in the training, interagency cooperation should be emphasized. I had an experience just last week, somewhere at Jibo, where some policemen parked, blocking one side of the road. A military guy was coming, who was going to, I think, the military formation beside Yabatek. They parked just on the road, and the road was blocked. Nobody could go. I came out to try to appeal to the policeman. He was even lying down in the car. He was not bothered. But the military men were coming, and then they went to him. He still was not listening. I had to join the army man to try to calm the army man down first, so we don't have exchange of fire. I was shouting, interagency cooperation. First, the military man looked at me, he smiled. That calmed the tension. And we managed to persuade the man to move his car. So they need to be trained on how they will interact with each other. I do not...
You have to interact with people, period.
Yeah, with people and not with... Because I wasn't carrying a gun, but the other guy was carrying a gun. I could appeal, and he would listen to me. The other guy was not having that patience. and you could just, so
Professor,
all of these
you're a very
things-
courageous man.
well,
Trying to settle a rift between two officers of the Nigerian state.
Both of them
I
carry
was
arms.
shouting intelligence cooperation. So they need, in the training itself, not just after they have been sent to the field, in the training itself, that needs to be emphasized. How to interact with the public, how to respect the rights of people, and of course, how to interact with each other and one another in a manner in which they will work, harmoniously for the benefit of society.
Well, Opeyemi Adamola.
Thank you. I will start with what Mr. Ologun said as kind of a framing for this year in review. That per the Constitution, the primary purpose of government is the security and welfare of citizens. And I mean, if you look at three of those words, security, welfare, and citizens, we've talked about security. And that ties to policing that we're reviewing. And just the fact that if you have a police force, as Professor Rotimi says, that's underpaid, understaffed, and get more money or get more visibility by carrying the bags or being personal assistants, more or less, then there is a fundamental problem, number one. Number two, the point he made about that we have something to learn from structures we've had in the past. It's not that we haven't done this in the past. Again, it goes to intentionality. What is our intent with policing in Nigeria? What do we want it to do? I traveled by road on Christmas Day, came back by road again today, thanks to challenges of airlines. Benin Road is a disaster. First, the road is bad. Then on a stretch of road, you have police, you have military, you have FRSC, all checking for God knows what. But in the process, obviously, as people wind down, you just see them put a note in the policeman's hand or military man. Or I saw police, let me not malign the military. They were there, but I didn't see any of them collect, but certainly police. And you were waved off. So if you were carrying anything, who knows? Number one. Number two, then it backs up traffic because you've blocked the road to force people to slow down. Now, we have all of that, but yet we're complaining about insecurity in the country because our security forces, interagency cooperation, are busy doing work that's not their work. So that, and I haven't seen anything that the administration is doing intentionally to stop that. You hear announcements all the time that we're moving checkpoints, there shall be no checkpoints, but it's as if all of that is falling on deaf ears. And I dare say to the IGP, if you're really serious about the fact that you want to remove checkpoints, provide a way for people to report checkpoints that they see, send pictures if they can, even if it's clandestinely, anonymously, and then let us see consequences if you're really serious about it. That's that. Secondly, I want to tie that to during the presidential chat. One of the things, actually, Joe Abba, who was a former DG at, what was he?
Yeah, public sector reform.
Thank you very much. Who was former DG at Public Sector Reform, did a really nice thread on Twitter around his feedback on the presidential chat. And he said that the media, the interviewers, didn't do a good job of taking the president on when he challenged them around the fact that his ministers were performing. And he gave a list, and I'll go through them quickly because I think it's important as we reflect on the year as it ends. He said they should have asked him, if you have a ministry of a Greek, why do you need a livestock ministry? Why is it not a department? Especially within the context of the cost of governance. This goes back also to police. You have a ministry of police, whereas you have an IG of police that reports directly to you. Why do you need both? And the ministry has a 1 trillion or 1 billion naira budget. Talked about the Oronson report that they set up a committee earlier this year to review the fact that we have too many MDAs. What has happened to it? No journalist asked him. He said Mohamed Pate, the Minister of Health, is doing excellently well. A perfect opportunity to say, what exactly do you consider excellent? To see just how well the president was monitoring. And then the last one was marine and blue economy. What exactly has he done in 18 months? And the point Joe Abba makes, which I quite agree with, and that's why I'm quoting him in a sense, is that it seemed that the journalists were starstruck. And there were too many of them, so there wasn't enough time for people to ask follow-up questions, even though the president did, in his comments, provide ample opportunity for that. And I'll now tie that into this administration's lack of concern for optics. The president was very cavalier in his comments. I'm doing a pretty good job. People, and then again, the push, I think it was Olima Okwe, that pushed back when he said he was doing a good job, that's not how you are seen. And so I tie that then to optics. Take something like the CBN. You will go to a bank, go to an ATM machine, they won't have money. You would maybe want to give someone a gift and you would like new notes. They'll tell you they don't have. But attend any party in Lagos on any given day, new notes will be available to be used, to be sprayed, to be gifted. We've talked about this before when Bobrisky was arrested, the fact of spraying money. How do the monies get there? But yet, ATMs don't have it. Number two, fuel subsidy. I think one of the good things that has happened, even though a number of years ago I was very much against the removal, because the way it was framed at the time, and it still is really, and I will say that, was that we were going to remove it because we couldn't stop government corruption. So government was incompetent in ensuring that the subsidy did what it was supposed to do. And because government couldn't figure out how to do that, we were going to have Nigerians suffer. And that was the premise why a lot of us, in 2012, during the Occupy Nigeria protests, were against the removal. Fast forward to 2024, and what we were saying then is still true now. In Dangote's refinery coming up and what has happened, that the whole country hasn't kind of protested or gone up in anger, it's clear that the numbers are still a lie. Let me just put it very bluntly. We still don't know as a country how much liters of fuel we're consuming. And this kind of back and forth that has now allowed fuel prices to come down, there's still no clarity around what NNPC is doing or not doing, as the case may be. And some people still have jobs. Again, back to the issue of optics and consequences. And then lastly, the tax point that was made earlier, that even if it's a good thing, one of the things, optics and communication, that the administration hasn't done very well in just letting, because at the end of the day, helping people connect dots between their well-being and what this tax will do or not do. You hear tax and you just think government gets a lot of money. But if government is able to connect the dots so people understand how it works for them, then they can challenge their state governor. And I think it was Mr. Dankule that was making the point around Niger State using 1 million hectares and getting $1 billion in investment. And then citizens can then challenge their states that rather than crying over the fact that your VAT numbers will be less, what are you doing in leveraging what the state has to give? So all in all, it's been a very interesting year. But I think for me, what I take away is that for the president to think that he's doing a very good job, for him to think that his ministers are doing excellently well, is the best picture that Nigerians need to understand, that he's not sending any of us, and he doesn't really have a good grasp of what's happening with the people in his country.
Okay. You don't want to comment on the airlines?
Oh, yes. Well,
since you travel by road?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I kind of said it in passing. And I think, I haven't kind of dug into the details of the sanctions, but I think it's a really good starting point. Look, we're Africa's most populous nation. We don't have a national carrier. Some people are lobbying to be Nigeria's national carrier. But you can't do that with poor customer service. You can't do that with people struggling on a tarmac to get on a plane. You can't do that in not refunding people's money after 6 months or 7 months or 5 months. You can't do that with poor customer service. So as Professor Awora said, it's excellent that NCA is providing sanctions. But I do disagree with the gentleman that was here, basically saying that it's the airline's job. And I think Professor Kila said the same thing. It's the airline's job to ensure that their staff give adequate customer service. No. The airline margins are thin. And given the way Nigeria is structured, it takes a lot of investment to have competition. So we are challenged in that regard. So when we then have kind of a monopoly on certain routes, and citizens cannot, in a sense, vote with their naira and kobo, then the state has a regulator, has a bigger job in ensuring that the service provider provides adequate service to consumers. Okay,
as we begin to wrap up the year and the program for today, let's take one more subject that was very, of great concern to many Nigerians in the last few weeks of the year. As part of efforts to prevent tragedy at public events, several states across Nigeria have begun the implementation of strict precautionary measures. This comes after about 67 persons, 35 of them children, recently died in stampedes in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, Okija, Anambra State, and Abuja during a fun fair and food distribution ceremonies. The Lagos State government mandated individuals and groups to register with state safety agencies when planning for events expected to host more than 250 attendees, both during and after the Yuletide season. The government emphasized that failure to comply with this directive would result in sanctions for event organizers. Let me come back to you quickly, Professor Killer, as we begin to wrap up now.
Well, generally speaking, I'm not a fan of government intervening in what people want to do. You know, the less intervention, the better for me. But I think since people have died during these events, it is important to address it. But my thinking is that we have to address it from three different angles. Number one is that the reason why there was so much people to be vying for tokens for survival is because of the level of poverty in the land. You know, those who can afford it will not be there. The fact that there were so many people there shows you that there's so many people who need it. By the way, it's sad to say, but these are also the same people who sell their vote at a certain point. It's that level of poverty that affects this kind of thing. The other thing is that before the poverty and after the poverty, we fail to educate ourselves on the importance of orderliness, to know that, you know, what differentiates human beings from animals are two things. It is number and orderliness. Even some animals are orderly. I've seen them in the way they do. But these are ideas, but I think it's due to uncertainty. These are ideas when you put people together and you give 6 people a crate of drink, they might still rush to get it because we're used to things not being enough. So maybe, again, productivity can help that. So from the economic front is productivity and availability of needs and then educating them to do so. Then perhaps a symbol of engineering can also help. When you go to places, learning how to arrange it. I am worried. I understand the need, but I'm not very impressed about this idea of saying people should register before they have events. It's giving bureaucrats too much power. And power in the hands of bureaucrats leads to discretion, corruption, and arbitrary use. I'm allergic to it. I think we should educate more and have an idea to say, the law says, if you want to have an event for more than 250 people, these are the things that you need to do. And then maybe they come and check if you're doing it before the event. This registration thing, I am not for it, I must say.
Okay.
I understand intention, but I challenge the method.
Well, Mr. Femi Falana, SAN, says blame the police. What do you think, Mr. Logun?
Thank you. I want to focus on what I did not see those commenting on that ugly episode focus on, which is what can the government do to move us from the realm of poverty to the realm of prosperity? Because the reports came out that some of these things have been given out in recent past. But right now, the poverty in the land, the hunger in the land, the hardship in the land has come to the point where it is difficult to be organized in reaching out to the people. And I think we need to look at that. In one of the videos, you still saw the law enforcement agents there. But when you have desperate people with survivor's mentality, people throwing their children across the fence, I think the government should be concerned, not just making excuses. It's important that we re-energize the economy of this nation. There was a time in Nigeria where people were not this desperate to make ends meet. And Lagos State has stated that if you want to bring about over 250 together, you need to follow some regulations. These regulations have been there. I think in Akwa Ibom, it's about 300. And these regulations have been there. But like the issue of the NCAA, can you sustain the implementation of ensuring? Are you letting us know now there won't be infractions even on the part of those who are expected to enforce? But above all, please, how can we get back to productivity, to prosperity, and maximize the resources of this country to generate commonwealth for common good so that we don't have this, you know? And some videos still came out of people queuing, even in the residence of the president. I mean, it doesn't speak well of Nigeria that is so blessed in terms of resources to have humans that should be developed reduced to the state they are, and those who were out to do good to the people, you can see how it has turned. So please, let's make it a holistic issue, not just regulations aspect, but again, reviving our economy?
Professor Awurawo?
Yeah, three things quickly. The first has to do with the broader picture, which is why do so many people come for handouts? And we have, it's clear because the state of the economy is not good, and people are poor. Poverty is vast, it's extensive, and people are desperate to get whatever they can. People have been, those who have, some people have commented on the video, at Bodilon, that long queue of people waiting to get handout from the president. Those who defend the president say, he has always done it. 20 years he has been doing it. But I have a friend who lives just about opposite. And around Christmas, I go there. So I get to see the queue. We have never seen a queue this long. So it has always been there, but this is unprecedented. Almost like 2 kilometers thereabouts. And I've never seen anything like that. I was there last year. It was nothing close to what we have seen this time. So it speaks to the level of poverty in the land, which needs to be addressed with good policies, good implementation, sincerity of purpose, and hopefully we'll be able to get over this. Then the second layer has to do with the people organizing it. I don't think in some cases they've applied common sense. Like the Ibadan case, people were outside, the gate was locked. When you see a crowd like that, you don't just say go and open the gate. As they say, what Oriyemi Hamzat said, they'll go and open the gate. So at that point they should have just called for security forces, arrange the people. That people will not be enough to contain them. Get buses to move them. So do something quick so that people don't die. People have been sympathizing with the what's her name now? Naomi. Yes, I also sympathize with her. She had good intentions, but people have been saying, she should be released and all that. People should not forget that people died. They are speaking as if the life of people died is not important. And when we speak of violence, there are two kinds: somatic and structural. Somatic is when you deliberately want to kill somebody. Structural is when you did not deliberately want to kill somebody, but your action led to the death of people. So it's still
most people die of structure. Most people die of structural violence,
than even
not somatic violence.
Exactly. So we sympathize with her. They should do quick so that she can be released. But people should not speak as if her being released is far more important than the lives of those who have died. So those who want to organize these things moving forward, they need common sense beyond government attempting to say regulation and all that. And then finally, I don't think the police, like Mr. Falana said, is if people say come and do Christmas, we'll give you a gift, and police is not involved, how do you blame the police? I know Mr. Falana has some issue with police, but in this context, please, the police should be allowed to rest. When they are invited, they should be allowed to do their jobs. But in this context, I don't think the police should be blamed.
Okay,
Two things quickly. I'm quite curious. I mean, Naomi was arrested for the Ibadan Stampede. Has anybody been arrested for Abuja or Nambra? I haven't heard.
I think they said they have arrested for Abuja.
Okay, that's
yes, okay. For Abuja.
For Abuja, okay, that's good to know.
Including
Secondly,
a Catholic priest.
We've talked about all the sort of the issues, the poverty, and I think I also want to parallel it to our lack of organization and obeying rules is not a poverty matter. Well, it's a poverty of the mind matter, not a hunger matter. Davido's concert at Eko Hotel, saw footage, VIP tickets were 120,000 naira. That's not poverty, but the footage of people rushing, not paying attention because either they oversold the seats, there were not enough, again, back to bad organizers. So yes, there's a place for poverty, but organizers also need to be held accountable when they're organizing events.
Well, thank you very much, Opeyemi Adamolekun. Thank you, Professor David Awurawo. Thank you, Mr. Jide Ologun, and thank you, Professor Anthony Kila. I look forward to this kind of 100% attendance, in the new year. Well, this technically is our last episode, This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show this year. When next we come your way, it will be in New Year 2025. And all of us, we want to wish you a very happy New Year in advance. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.